From beautiful Phoenix, Arizona, it is the Neglected News Report. I'm your co-host, Scott Mitchell, along here with my brother, Kevin.
Good afternoon. There it goes.
It doesn't do it all the time. It's the hard drive. It's got to be. I'll just have to go get myself another external hard drive or build one or something. Anyway, I'll get the words out today. I'm a little slow. We're both kind of a little slow this morning.
Had to have a cup of coffee before we went on.
Yeah, I didn't sleep none too well last night. I was very restless with an injury I have. It just kept waking me up.
Yeah, I had a buddy come in from the East Coast that I served in the Army with 30 years ago, and he was here for a couple of days. It kind of screwed up my.
What did he leave yesterday?
My clock, yeah.
Ugh.
So I was, I'm used to going. I'm a early riser and an early to sleep guy.
Same here.
And while he was here, I was staying up till midnight. Ooh.
Uh-oh.
That's late for me.
Well, I tend to stay up till about 10 or 11 on Saturdays, which is late for... I'm in bed by 9 o'clock at the latest.
I make no distinction from the 7 days of the week. My job and my life is such that one day is no different than the next. I many times will work on the weekend, so it doesn't matter to me.
Oh, I'm just the opposite. Monday morning, 8 o'clock gets here. When I clock in, I say, come on, Friday.
Yeah, it was a nice day yesterday. We took a early morning hike up the mountain. Nice. Got a view of Phoenix. About an 800-foot elevation gain, 4-mile hike. It was great. How
was the big brown cloud?
The big brown cloud in Phoenix?
Yeah.
I didn't see it really.
For those of you who don't know what that is, there's a big brown cloud that covers the city, especially during the winter months from the pollution and dust and whatever, because we're
in a bowl.
In a bowl, and we have the population increases during the winter months when all the snowbirds come in from the shall we say, less hospitable climates.
Speaking of snowbirds, how's that global warming working for you guys back east right now?
Yeah, I can't repeat it. Someone posted something, or I think it was our cousin Lori that posted something, or a friend of mine or something posted a picture that was just funny.
Oh yeah, there was a thread I was following from my cousin who lives in Elmira, New York, which is up by Buffalo or Syracuse, somewhere up there, where it's really, really cold, and they were complaining about the frigid temperatures, and all I did was I cut and paste a copy of the 10-day forecast here for Phoenix and put it on.
I bet a lot of people have been doing similar things lately, just to tick off the people back east.
I have no romantic feelings at all about the cold. I spent time in Germany, and after I left there, I said, you know what? I am never going to live in a cold climate.
No, okay. What they posted was, I don't know who it was. They said, it's so cold here that I think I keyed the side of my car with my nipples.
Whoa. Was that one of her friends?
I don't know if it was her or someone else, but it sounds like something it might have been another friend of mine that lives in upstate New York. I don't remember. I forget who posted it though.
So we're told by the powers that be that when it's hot, it's global warming. When it's cold, it's global warming. When it's wet, it's global warming. When it's dry, or whatever. Yeah, okay, whatever you want to call it from day to day. They only change the name when they become so discredited. They have to change the name. So this leads me to my first thing I want to talk about. It's an article entitled, it's a short one, UN official reveals real reason behind global warming scare. The alarmists keep telling us their concern about global warming is all about man's stewardship of the environment, but we know that's not true. A United Nations official has now confirmed this. At a news conference last week in Brussels, Cristiana Figueres, executive director of the UN's Framework Convention on Climate Change, admitted that the goal of environmental activists is not to save the world from ecological calamity, but to destroy capitalism.
Surprise, surprise.
I've been saying this for years. It's all it's about. This is the first time in the history of mankind that we are setting ourselves the task of intentionally, within a defined period of time, to change the economic development model that has been reigning for at least 150 years since the Industrial Revolution, she said. When I started getting... When the global warming scare started back in, what was it, the 1990s? When did we start?
Yeah, it was something like that. Because I remember when we were kids. You remember how I used to get like Science magazine, and I used to get Omni, and it was all about global cooling.
The next ice age.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden I think it started when the early 90s when Clinton and Gore got elected, because Gore was the big
So they started talking about global warming, and I wasn't awake about a lot of things back in the 90s. I was still in that whole Republican-Democrat paradigm and not really questioning the intents of government and, the man behind the curtain, so to speak, and like the Wizard of Oz. I didn't even think that was possible. But anyway, I took this global warming thing at face value and said, okay, yeah, we do pollute a lot. Okay, I'll run with it for a while. And then they started coupling it with, we're gonna cure global warming by taxing you. Right. That's when my antenna went up, and I said, there's something nefarious to this. This is how can taxing anybody save the world, save the environment, save temperatures from going up? And this basically said it right here. The purpose of it is all wealth redistribution. That's all it is. What do you think cap and trade is?
Yeah, it's taking it from those who have, given to the ones that don't have.
Yeah, and basically lowering the level of the water, so we're all. What it is worldwide communism. Mm-hmm. Period. It's a control system. I've been telling you folks this for a long time. It's a control system. They're going to have a very, very small elite. Read UN people at the very top, and zero middle class. You're already seeing that. Our middle class has shrunk. It just since Obama became president by I can't even tell you how much. And then you're going to have the rest. You're going to have the top 0.001% of the world ruling the rest of us. It's going to be a feudal system. Read Agenda 21. Read Hunger Games.
Think about it this way. As an example, I've been with the same company I'm with for just 10 years as of last December. I make more now than I made then. I make more now than I ever have made. But that same money buys less than it did 10 years ago, even though I'm making a lot more. Or pretty decent amount more.
Inflation started the day we went off the gold standard.
See, that's the thing. That's why they're ruining the middle class. Because pretty soon, someone who makes a decent living now is $50,000, $60,000, depending on what part of the country you live in. Okay, in Phoenix, $50,000 to $60,000 is pretty decent.
Yeah,
but there's going to come a time not too far down the road when $50,000 to $60,000 is the same as what $30,000 to $40,000 was 10 years ago.
Well, when you and I were little kids, remember someone was really wealthy. Oh, so and so's dad is a lawyer. He makes $50,000 a year. In the 1960s, you made $50,000 a year.
You were rich.
That was a lot of money. Mm-hmm. A Corvette back then was under $10,000.
I remember we bought a car. Back in '69, we bought a '66 Charger and a '69 Charger. They were like $2,000 each.
No. I'll never forget.
Or $4,000.
Dad rolling in the driveway with the '69 Charger, and Mom goes, "Roy, what'd you pay for that?" He said $4,500.
Okay, $4,000. Yeah,
and she said $4,500.
You can't buy a used car for that now.
Oh no! Oh, of course not. No,
I did, but that was for the private owner.
Our money's corrupted. I mean, how can you continuously print money and maintain the value of the money? When you're printing it out of thin air. And folks, that's what the Fed does. They print money out of thin air. That is the only reason the world economy did not collapse in 07 and 08.
Keep in mind also the Fed, when we say Fed, we mean Federal Reserve, not federal government. The Fed is not a government entity either.
Nope.
It is a private entity.
We don't even know really who owns them. Who owns the banks that is the Fed?
It's a private entity that the government's given control over the money supply.
They have never been audited. We don't know who controls them. We don't know where the money goes to. If they're helping their cronies, which I'm sure they are, we don't know anything about them. But they control our. They used to just control our money supply. Now they control our whole economy. They control the stock market. They control everything.
Think about this. I just thought of something. Would you outsource? Basically, it's outsourcing the control of the money supply. Okay, right? Constitution says. This is interesting. I just thought of another thing too. Constitution says that the federal government is given the power to mint money, not print it. It says mint. It's very specific in the wording. Because they didn't want to have paper money. They knew what could happen if there's paper fiat currency. Okay. would you outsource the making of law to a third party, private party?
No.
Okay. Why are we? Because it's constitutionally mandated that Congress makes the laws, then the executive department executes them. Why are we doing that with the money supply when the money supply is something the federal government is supposed to take care of? And like I said, they're supposed to mint it, not print it. Technically, on a federal level, printing of money is illegal. So they get around it by having a private entity do it.
So the 16th Amendment.
But they have a private entity printing the money, but they give the money that's printed the power of any money they may have minted. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because they call a Federal Reserve note that's backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. That's what it says on every bill you have. I don't have any to double check with right now because I don't use a lot of cash.
And what is backing our fiat currency?
We don't know.
Faith.
Nothing.
Faith.
Exactly. Faith.
That's it.
So when you have that happening, where's the gold? Where's the gold?
It's blue sky. It's nothing. It's the biggest Ponzi scheme in human history.
I will bet right now that the two microphones we're talking on right now have more gold in them than Fort Knox does. This is real gold, by the way, too, on these things.
Imagine if one day I opened up like a lemonade stand in my front yard and was lending money that I was printing up and lending it for interest. How long do you think that would last? Well, first of all, you couldn't spend it because it would be worthless. But for some reason, the Fed has credibility. The Fed from the very beginning said, we're going to print this stuff based on nothing, and we're going to lend it to you, and you're going to have to pay us interest on it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all it is. They print money, lend it out at interest, and it's a.
If I'm not mistaken, at least Alexander Hamilton had the decency to make the Bank of the U.S. when he tried to start the first and second Bank of the U.S. He at least tried to make them federal, didn't he, or government controlled?
Yeah, he wanted to, but
yeah, he tried.
He died in a duel.
Yeah,
Aaron Burr,
bastard.
But So basically what you're seeing with QE1, QE2, and QE3 is the government just holding on to, and eventually they won't be able to hold on and the whole system will collapse and they'll come in with their new system, which is sort of like communism.
And folks, QE stands for quantitative easing.
It's money printing.
It's interesting how the quantitative easing is reducing the qualitative value of the currency. Because guess what? When you have a larger quantity of something, it's worth a lot less and the quality of it is down.
So anybody discerning individual would look at what's been done since the crisis of 07-08 and say, this is insanity. And yeah, it is, but not to the people that are doing it. I really believe I was watching a documentary called Money for Nothing. You can get it on Netflix, and it talks about the history of the Federal Reserve. And these people that they're interviewing were, the Fed chairmen, old Fed chairmen, and so forth. And they say, no, this, there's no grand plan. There are just, mistakes people made, and so on and so forth. You can't make a mistake like that. You can't. I mean, come on. How does this how do we get to this position where the world is on the brink? They said, what did Bernanke say, that if we didn't bail these banks out, that
they'd fail
within a couple days, the world would be in chaos. There would be riots in the street.
It's the same thing with with bailing out the car automakers. They're too big to fail. No, they're not.
No, it's BS. What they're doing is what did Geithner say? We're gonna end the dollar. Mm-hmm. We're gonna destroy the dollar if
we do it.
No.
Oh,
he said
that's their purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, he said we're pull it up on YouTube. Don't take it from me. He said what was the exact word he used? Not end the dollar. We're gonna not destroy the dollar, but we're gonna crash the dollar. Something.
Yeah.
And I believe. Call me a conspiracy theorist. I believe that's their purpose. Mm-hmm. You can't have the one world order that they want to have with the United States being all powerful like we're not so much anymore. But the one world superpower. You can't have that. You can't take over the world when you have a United States.
Nope.
So now we voted Obama in, and in my opinion, he's not really, doesn't really have our best interests at heart. So he's made us weak in the last 6 years. So we're less of an obstruction to the one worlders.
Which brings us to another thing: why he does that. And I think Rudy Giuliani made a good comment this week.
Yeah, and he got a lot of guff for it too. Mm-hmm. Giuliani said, he's a communist. Duh. So the thing that gets me, we all knew, those of us that were awake 6 years ago or more when he was running for president, knew who he was, because he told us who he was in his books, Dreams from My Father.
He also said that, in his opinion, Obama doesn't love the country.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't. And think about this, folks. What was one of the biggest statements he made when he ran for president in 2008? He said, now we begin the fundamental transformation of America. If you love something, why do you want to fundamentally change it?
And don't forget, he said that people will remember this day, the day that the ocean stopped rising.
Yes, the ocean stopped rising.
Oh, what a messianic complex. It's amazing. But going back to Obama, all you had to be doing when he rose from nothing, by the way, we could spend a whole show talking about that. All you had to do was read, Dreams of My Father, when he talked about his dalliances with communism. And the people, Frank Marshall Davis, his parents, his grandparents, everybody that was surrounding this man was a communist. And he has communists surrounding him to this day. Mm-hmm. Valerie Jarrett, Van Jones, and I would imagine a bunch of minions. I would imagine the State Department. There's tons of them.
You got to wonder how he got elected. I'm thinking back, and this applies. I was thinking back. I watched Sunday night. They had the Saturday Night Live 40th anniversary special, and they had they played one of the old skits with Will Ferrell as George Bush during the, or was it? Well, no. It was actually no. It was Dana Carvey as George H.W. Bush during the 88 debates against Michael Dukakis, and he's going off this whole thing that's just Dana Carvey doing it. It's just a bunch of nonsense, basically. And all of a sudden they pan the camera over to Dukakis. He goes, "I can't believe this guy's beating me." Well, it's like, I'm guessing, at least in the 2012 election, that Romney was thinking the same thing. I can't believe this guy's beating me. It's a little more believable with McCain in 2008. But it's like, really, I mean, it's just nothing but bumper stickers and platitudes when he speaks. Well,
yeah, he doesn't say anything. And the thing that bothers me the most is all these people are starting to wake up now. Rudy Giuliani, you're starting to hear things. Now people are saying, he sure does show some Islamic tendencies. He sure does show some communistic tendencies. Anybody who was paying attention.
Well, there were some that were. I mean, at least on talk radio.
But they were marginalized.
Yes. Well,
you couldn't get on the mainstream if you were saying things like Obama's.
Going back to 2008, you had Hannity and Beck both saying he's a Marxist and he's an Islamic sympathizer. They were right from the beginning. At least Hannity was. Hannity went out of his way to say that.
And remember, he made the comment about the 57 states?
Yeah.
Well, folks, just in case you don't know, there's 57 Islamic states, only 50 regular states here in the United States.
Right, exactly.
So he makes slips, He remember the interview with Stephanopoulos when he was talking about his Islamic faith.
I forget now.
Yeah, and Stephanopoulos had to correct him and say Christian faith. Oh yeah.
Christian. Oh yeah.
Don't you remember that? I mean, and you've heard stories about his ring that he wears.
Yeah,
it's Islamic ring. So this leads me to the stuff that's happened this last week. That just
take a number, man. There's a lot of stuff happening.
I mean, I'm going to give you a half a dozen things. So you're all aware about the Coptic Christians in Egypt that were beheaded
last weekend
on the beach. Was that in Libya? The ones on the beach. Anyway.
Yeah, I think it was.
Well, anyway, there were. I think it was 21.
And then they set fire on about 45.
Yeah, Coptic Christians beheaded by ISIS, and they were Christian, but Obama refused to call them Christians. He called them Egyptian citizens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And ISIS made it very clear in the video that this was an execution of people of the cross. That's in quotations. Mm-hmm. Those are words they've used down through the centuries for Christians. People of the cross. That's what they're known as. And there is no second guessing. You know the exact reason why these people were executed.
They had
but Obama will not admit to that.
And one of the heads of the Coptic Church was on this week, just going off about that whole thing on Fox. It was like Thursday or Friday. I forget which day.
Weren't the Coptic Christians the original Christians? Weren't they like?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. So okay, that's one instance. This is strike one against Obama. Here's another one. Oh, and this goes back to the Paris shootings. He said, the White House says that the shootings at the kosher market in Paris, where several Jews were killed, that it was random. So Muslims, terrorists, just randomly go into a kosher deli.
And the fact that the guy who did it said on videotape before he did it that he was going to go out to kill some Jews.
Yeah. I mean, who do you think you're going to run into when you go into a kosher market? And who is a radical Islamist's biggest enemy? The Jew.
Yep.
So White House says it was random.
Yep.
Pardon my lying eyes, Mr. President, but your world is really, really upside down. But I don't think it really is. I think you're just disingenuous, i.e. lying.
Yeah.
Okay. There's that. And this is another one of his ploys that I love. He had his extremist summit this week, where basically he warned the world about our right-wing terrorists here in the United States.
Yeah.
And he said there that we are not at war with Islam. That's what's called a straw man argument. Nobody ever said, who says that? Who says we're at war with Islam? No, we're at war with radical extremist Islam. Those who cut off the heads of children, those who crucify people, those are people we're at war with. We are not at war with your mainstream Muslims, but go ahead.
Here's one way to look at it. The militant Islamic extremists, or whatever you want to call them, as long as you say Islamic, they are to Islam as the Hillsborough Baptist Church is to Christianity.
Tell everybody.
Hillsborough Baptist Church is a church that would go out and protest the funerals of fallen soldiers, military people in the U.S., and say you're going to hell because you basically fought for gays and blah 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 and everything.
No, they didn't
whatever.
Call them gays.
I thought they did.
No, they call them fags.
Well, yeah, but I have to be
blunt. That's the Hillsborough Baptist Church used to carry placards that said "God hates fags."
And the pastor's name is Fred Phelps. He just passed away last year, I believe, or late the year before.
I don't think he went up. I think he went down upon his death. But that's just my.
But yeah, and they don't represent all of Christianity. Christianity condemns them, but yet, that being said, the militant Islamic forces such as ISIS and Al Qaeda, how many of your mainstream Muslims are condemning them? Not too darn many. No. I can count them on like one hand. You got like Waleed Faris, you got Zuhdi Jasser, you've got there's another guy, I can't remember his name.
Yeah,
the guy up in Utah.
What's the woman's name that's on Fox all the time? I forgot her name. She's a brave lady.
And yeah, she's got a contract on her head, or a fatwa on her head.
Oh, I'm sure.
And then they've got this guy up in Nevada. They interviewed last night on I think it was on Megyn Kelly's show. Shannon Breen was filling in. This guy is actually has been condemning him when he does the sermons. I can't remember the guy's name now. Darn it!
You know, they put a fatwa on Salman Rushdie over 20 years ago, just for writing an expose on the Muslim faith called Satanic Verses.
Yep.
That he said far less than these people are saying. Now, these people, their lives aren't worth anything if some of these extremists ever get a hold of them.
Yep.
So Obama takes something that is clear to everybody, every observer's eye. You know, ISIS executing Christians, ISIS executing children, cutting children's heads off, burning people alive, and he says nothing. Yet he goes to a prayer breakfast and reminds us all about the Crusades, all of us Christians about the Crusades. So when people like me accuse him of being a Muslim, why wouldn't I say that? Not
only that, but at that summit on to find out ways of combating militant extremism, or whatever you want to call it, militant extremism, there was not one representative of the Christian nor the Jewish faith.
No, there. I mean, okay, I'm going to have to pull a quote from Luke, the Bible, Luke 6:44. A tree is known by its fruit. Simple. Yeah. I mean, don't listen to just watch his actions. Mm-hmm. Watch what he does. Don't listen to the rhetoric, and certainly don't listen to CNN. Don't listen to ABC, CBS, NBC. Don't listen to them because they're just carrying water for the guy.
The closest one you'll get the truth from is Fox, still.
Well, to a degree.
Yeah. There's other places to look, though.
But don't listen to watch his actions. Watch what he does. Look what he's doing to Israel.
In other words, pay attention to the man behind the curtain.
Let me ask you a question.
What?
Before Obama was elected president of the United States, were Jews afraid for their life in Europe?
No.
What did Netanyahu?
Not to the extent they are now.
What did Netanyahu say this week to the Jews in Europe?
Oh, crap.
He said, get out.
Yeah.
He said, get out.
That's right. I forgot about that. I was thinking something else.
So, you got the leader of the free world, Obama, making basically not even cryptic. They're in your face, pro-Muslim sentiments. And he's emboldening radical Islam by his actions. And Netanyahu finally said, Jews, you need to come home.
Because ISIS is only about 500 miles away from getting into Europe.
Rome, 500 miles from Rome.
Yep.
And they threaten
right across the Mediterranean in Africa from Italy right now.
What did what's the leader of ISIS?
Al-Baghdadi.
Al-Baghdadi. What did he say? See you in New York?
We're going to see our flag flying over the White House. And
he said, we'll see you in New York.
Yeah, exactly. He said that too.
Which leads to, I don't know if any of you caught this, but this was really encouraging. It was very bad news, but it was encouraging because who was saying it. This week in the Atlantic, Atlantic is a notoriously leftist,
left-leaning,
left of center. Okay, yeah. I'll be kind. Journal, emanates from New York City, of course, and they carry the water typically for most, leftist causes and so forth. However, I didn't bring it with me, but I'm going to have to go off the top of my head. I forgot the author's name. Sorry. But he he went into great detail describing what motivates ISIS, who they are, what they think. And, to paraphrase, it was probably, I forgot how many words the article was, but it was, several pages, 10, 15 pages, long article. And the belief of ISIS is
Graham Wood,
yeah. Their belief is end-time belief. It's basically, they believe sort of like the inverse of Revelations in the New Testament. Here's what they believe. They believe in a figure called the Mahdi, which would translate loosely into Jesus Christ in the Christian faith. And the Mahdi will come in the end days, and he'll come in the end days, and the way, in order to hasten the arrival of the Mahdi, or he's also known as the 12th Imam, the way to hasten it is to create chaos and savagery in the world and blood and which exactly ISIS is doing. And then the Mahdi will come and it will signify the last days. And who comes with the Mahdi? According to the Islamic religion, Jesus Christ. However, Jesus Christ comes to tell the world that Islam is the truth and that Christianity is a bunch of BS. And then he proceeds to help the combatants lop off the heads of all the infidels. Jesus Christ, he comes with the sword and he helps behead, and so that's their belief, and it's all end time. And what they think they're doing right now is they think they're hastening the arrival of the Mahdi.
Okay, and answer this question, and this is a historical fact, not just a biblical fact, but an historical fact. Who did Jesus preach to? The Jews. He did not preach to the Muslims. There wasn't such things as Muslims back then.
No,
they were Arabs. Islam didn't start till about 500 years later.
What were
400 or 500 years later?
What were the two brothers? One represents Islam.
Isaac and Ishmael.
Ishmael represents the Islam, and
he was the father of the Arabs.
The Arabs, okay. Because it wasn't there yet. But.
Yes.
Yeah, the Arabs were Ishmael and the Jews were Isaac.
Right. And the father of both of them was Abraham.
And they were Noah's. How far down the line from Noah were they?
That doesn't matter.
Well, it does because they were a few generations removed from Noah, and after the flood they went in their different directions.
Well, the only reason they went in their different directions was that Abraham and Sarah had no children. They were old, and she was barren. And the Lord had promised him a son, and that his descendants would number as many as the sands on the beaches of the world. And he let Sarah convince him that, in order to do that, I'm barren, I'm not going to be able to do it. Take my servant girl Hagar, lay with her.
Is that related to Sammy?
No. Hagar was the mother of Ishmael. Sarah was the mother of Isaac. And the Lord, God cast Hagar and Ishmael out, but he protected them. He would be the father of a different branch. That's why it happened and how it happened.
Yeah, but it's only a couple generations removed from Noah.
Yeah.
That's all I was trying to...
Oh, okay. I'm not sure how many of mine, but I'd have to look at the genealogies again.
So, yeah, it's post-flood. So that's who ISIS is. And by the way, the day after that was published, that article, all the trolls, probably Obama trolls, came out trying to discredit what he was saying. I already knew all this. All he was just putting into words what I already knew. People like Glenn Beck already knew. The non-mainstream media knew already. We all knew this because you know why? It's in their Quran.
Yep.
It's right there. It's not like we're making this stuff up. So then Eric Holder comes out a couple days ago in I don't know, was it a press conference or was it just an interview or whatever, castigating Fox News because Fox News stirs the pot in the sense that they're always asking the administration why they don't call radical Islam. So Eric Holder takes exception to that because he doesn't think that it matters what you call it. You just got to take care of it. Well, let me ask you this, Eric, Mr. Holder. If you had been the Attorney General in the 1930s when blacks were being indiscriminately lynched and set on fire in the South, and you had been Attorney General, would you have hesitated in calling these racist redneck Ku Klux Klan members? Would you have hesitated calling them what they were? Of course you wouldn't have, nor should you have.
Nope.
You have to identify who the enemy is and what their beliefs are, so you can A, defend yourself against them, and D, eradicate them.
This administration can't even identify who our allies are.
Well, that's because our allies have changed.
No, they can't even identify Israel as our ally.
We used to be Israel's main ally. Well, I think Netanyahu knows he's sailing alone now. And and again, if you look at things biblically, that ain't good. That doesn't portend well for us.
Here's something interesting. I'm looking at the comments on that article. The first one is kind of funny, but it says, well, these comments should be fun. I've got my popcorn and I'm ready for the show. But the first one right out of the gate from someone who calls themselves Green Tea. In case you haven't noticed, these beheadings were real. Those beheadings were real. There once was a Muslim by the name of Tamerlane. He piled heads into hills after conquering a city. Outside of Delhi, he took plaster and living human beings and formed a tower. This is the reality of ISIS and the rest of the legions of Islamic fundamentalists. If you aren't scared to death of this, then you are a fool. And then real quick, the next comment, besides die, spam, or die, was, damn, if ISIS was as much of a threat as the Bolsheviks were, I'd argue for nuking the place now. The Bolsheviks led to the creation of the USSR. The USSR had nukes. I'd rather not see those guys get nukes. Why? And then the next one, and this is it. Well, if you read up on the Russian Civil War, nothing ISIS has done seems particularly new or even shocking, and you may recall the USSR was our ally at one point.
They were our ally because Hitler was our enemy. They were the enemy of my enemy is my friend, basically. That's what it amounted to. They were the lesser of the two evils. After we beat the Nazis, it was Patton who wanted to continue the march into Russia, which I think would have been a mistake.
But my point is people are they're ignoring it or just trying to, they don't want to believe it.
And we could have a whole show about the Bolshevik Revolution. It wasn't what anybody thinks it was. But anyway, so they tried out another one of Obama's people from the State Department, Marie Harf. She's second in command at the State Department. Okay, she's just a little bimbo, looks like straight out of college, blonde hair, talks Valley Girl.
She's about early 30s.
She uses Valley Girl inflection in the whole bit, and so she was in an interview with Chris Matthews of all people. Actually, Chris didn't do too bad. She says she was asked, "What are we doing?" with ISIS, and she says, "Well, we're killing a lot of them, and we're going to keep killing more of them, but we cannot win this war by killing them." Department spokeswoman Marie Harf said on NBC's Hardball, "We need to go after the root causes that leads people to join these groups, whether it's lack of opportunity for jobs, whether, and at that point, she was interrupted by Chris Matthews, who pointed out there's always going to be poor people. There's always going to be poor Muslims. Harf continued to argue that the U.S. should work with other countries to help improve their governance and help them build their economies so they can have job opportunities for these people. When I first heard it, I thought it was an SNL skit.
Yeah,
I thought it was straight out of SNL.
Well, she looked like she's probably from a cast of SNL.
I like that is straight out of the leftist handbook. That is right. Let me ask you this: if poverty promotes crime, then why during the Great Depression wasn't the crime rate sky high? It wasn't.
It wasn't.
Had nothing to do with it. The crime rate has nothing. Crime in, like, for instance, in inner city Chicago and inner city Detroit
went down.
Has more to do. No, it has more to do. Has nothing to do with poverty. Has everything to do with poverty of the soul. Has to do with the way the kids are raised. They're raised with single mothers. That's the root. That's the root cause if you want to get to it. And who promotes that? Government.
Then on Thursday, I think it was, O'Reilly had Jim Wallace. Oh. And the woman whose name eludes me, but she's basically an analyst with the Quakers.
What did Jim Wallace say?
Well, she had them both on, and they both essentially said the same thing. The Quakers, right? The Friends of whatever they call it. Their other name is the Friends of whatever. Anyway, they both said that no, we can't use violence. What we need to do is we need to get at who finances their operation.
CIA.
We need to turn them to our way of thinking so that they won't finance them any longer. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of ISIS's funding comes from raiding and pillaging.
not only that, do you remember months ago, Scott and I, way back in the summer, we were talking about the Benghazi thing in Benghazi, and we were basically kind of connecting the dots. Mm-hmm. You know, Ambassador Stevens what was he doing in Libya in a safe? Well, it wasn't a safe house. It wasn't even.
It was a condo.
Yeah, it was a condo.
Basically, from everything I could see,
he was negotiating, running guns. Mm-hmm. And whose hands did those guns? End up in.
That's one of the reasons why Obama probably doesn't want to do anything about ISIS.
They were going into. The arms were going to the rebels in Syria, and who are the rebels in Syria?
ISIS.
Remember, they were cutting out the hearts and eating them of their prisoners.
Beck made an interesting observation yesterday, and he says he's got proof of it. A lot of the bodies are being found without organs.
They're harvesting their organs. How evil can these people be?
They're harvesting their organs to sell them on the black market.
Do you remember the YouTube video where they took one of their Syrian soldier captive, and he was alive. No, he was either executed. Yeah, I think he was shot in the head, and then they took out his heart and ate it in front of the camera.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. When it comes to look at these videos, I haven't looked at any of them.
I don't watch it. I can't.
But there are those that are saying in the media now, you got to watch it so you don't forget it. You know what? I'm not going to forget it. I don't think it's going to be.
I don't need to see Jeffrey Dahmer eating his victims to get the whole concept.
No, I will admit, since this whole quote war on terror started back in 2001, I watched one video when they beheaded Nick Berg. That's it, because that was the first one.
I didn't even watch that. I can't watch someone's misery like that. I just have a really hard time.
That's the only time I ever did it, and it's like I was left worse than before I watched it. After seeing it, if you can't watch something like that and not have it affect your soul, there's something wrong with you. Seriously.
So we're subjected to these images every day now. ISIS, committing atrocities against children, women, burning people alive, cutting their heads off, crucifying them, eating taking their organs out of their body, eating their organs. Just you name everything, every horrific thing that you could imagine. And we've got the head of our government, in the White House, that refuses to acknowledge, it's radical Islam. So this week we had the extremist conference. Is that what he called it?
It was the conference on how to battle extremists. And
the guests were all Muslim. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a Christian there.
Nope.
And anyway, this is from Zero Hedge, this article, which if you ever get a chance, go to Zero Hedge. There's some really good information on there. The article is entitled "The War on Terror Turns Inward." DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, which I have a hard time with that term, by the way. Mm-hmm. Homeland Security, calling United States the homeland. Russia used to call it the Mother Russia. Germany used to call it the fatherland. Russia called it the motherland. It smacks of totalitarianism, by the way. But anyway, the article is entitled "The War on Terror Turns Inward." DHS report warns of right-wing terror threat. Right. Okay. Let me read this. The article is by Mike Krieger. I know someone named Mike Krieger. He writes Liberty Blitzkrieg blog. He says, what you're about to read from CNN is just the very beginning of the international demonization of a growing segment of the U.S. population that rightly believes the government is run by a collective of thieving, corrupt, immoral sociopaths. This isn't speculation either. Years of content on this site serves as definitive proof that it is true. Commingling dissent, violence, and right-wing ideology will be key in the ultimate division of government critics in these United States, and a successful attempt to scare people away from questioning a clearly degraded and parasitic status quo. The writing has been on the wall for many years, and I've warned about this development on many occasions. If Martin Armstrong's model is correct and the U.S. economy starts to move downward in the fall of 2015, which I want to talk about why it always happens in the fall. I'll get into that if I have time. Dissent will spread across the land like brush fire, and the status quo will call dissenters terrorists. That's why they're making the bed right now. They're setting the stage. They're setting us up. Anybody who dissents, okay? My advice to everyone listening is don't fall for it. Instead, unite together in order to achieve a peaceful societal and economic paradigm shift. Sure, there will always be neo-Nazis and genuine racist crazies out there who hate the government merely because they are small-minded and filled with hate. But they are a small number compared to those who have genuine grievances against the system which are not being redressed. Stories like the following are pure government propaganda and are guaranteed to increase exponentially in the years ahead. He goes on, he says, this is from CNN. This is from CNN Bureau in Washington. They're carrying out sporadic terror attacks on police, have threatened attacks on government buildings, and reject government authority. That's referring to what they consider right-wing terrorists here in the United States, groups like sovereign citizens. Sovereign citizens, basically, all sovereign citizens want is reasonable taxation, and they want
reasonable representation.
They want states' rights back. They want a smaller federal government. That's all. And they're not violent. That's why you've never heard of them, because they haven't ever done anything.
Right.
Yet according to the Department of Homeland Security, they're a bigger threat than ISIS or any extreme Islamic terrorist. And so let me repeat that again. They're carrying out sporadic terror attacks on police. I haven't even heard of any. Have threatened attacks on government buildings and reject government authority. You notice how CNN commingles violence with rejecting government authority. This is intentional and meant to subliminally link the two ideas in the minds of the feeble-minded who still get their news from CNN. In reality, there is no such connection. Conversely, this country was founded on the idea that people should only submit to government when it's working in their best interest. And in the first paragraph of the Declaration of Independence is explicit when discussing that when the government turns against its people, becomes tyrannical. We have the right. We have the duty actually to. So it goes back to now we're back to CNN. It says a new intelligence assessment circulated by the Department of Homeland Security this month and reviewed by CNN focuses on this domestic terror threat from right-wing sovereign citizen extremists and comes as the Obama administration holds a White House conference to focus efforts to fight violent extremism. Of course, no mention of ISIS, and we're talking about sovereign citizens here. Do you see the disconnect? Do you see I can't even put words. It's sick. It's sociopathic. It's psychopathic. You take the obvious and ignore it and take something that doesn't exist and you put all your emphasis on it. It's crazy. You get that? We're in big trouble. Some federal and local law enforcement groups view the domestic terror threat from sovereign citizen groups as equal to, and in some cases greater than, the threat from foreign Islamic terror groups such as ISIS that garner more public attention. The Homeland Security report produced in coordination with the FBI counts 24 violent sovereign citizen-related attacks across the U.S. since 2010. Can someone please name one for me? What sovereign citizens attack? What did they spray paint a building or something?
I never heard of them until you mentioned them.
I had, but I'd never, only because the DHS is obsessed with them. I never knew who they were until they started talking about them. Because you don't hear, they don't do anything. Maybe they take a can of spray paint and put down with Obama or something. I don't know. The government says these extremists who believe that they can ignore laws and that their individual rights are under attack in routine daily instances such as a traffic stop or being required to obey a court order. See what they're doing? What they're doing is there's anybody who speaks out against their government is now a terrorist. And what can kick in then, Scott? The NDAA, National Defense Authority Act. I don't have time to talk about it right now, but in case you don't know about it, read.
It's like the government very rarely can prove what they really want to get someone on, so they'll find a little less, more of a minor infraction to get them on. Like with Al Capone, they couldn't get him on racketeering. They got him on tax evasion.
You can always get somebody on tax. That's what DeLorean was finally.
Well, wasn't that what happened with Ruby Ridge though?
Oh, Ruby Ridge was an atrocity. Well, anyway, CNN goes on to say, while groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda garner the most attention for many local cops, the danger is closer to home. And again, this is crazy. A survey last year of state and local law enforcement officers listed sovereign citizen terrorists ahead of foreign Islamists and domestic militia groups as a top domestic terror threat. Are you serious? It's this. Talk about a straw man. Talk about demonizing something that doesn't exist. What they're doing is they're laying the groundwork. So the next, whether it's a false flag or a real operation, a real terrorist, a real Islamist, a real, radicalized Islamist destroys a building, kills a bunch of people, lets off a suitcase nuke or whatever, they're laying the groundwork to blame it on you and me. We're the terrorists. Anybody on the right wing who questions government is the terrorist. That's what this is all about. And CNN is an arm. Don't doubt me when I say this. CNN is just an arm of the left wing government, at least the government that's in power right now. They're carrying their water. They're doing they're carrying out their marching orders. That's what all this is, because they're reporting on something that doesn't even exist.
Much like MSNBC.
So,
but with better ratings.
So importantly, the report emanates from the Department of Homeland Security, a bloated, ineffective, pointless, and dangerous agency. Oh, and remember Janet Napolitano said one of the biggest threats were returning veterans.
Yes. The silverback gorilla did say that.
I mean, if you think your government is not at war with you, you better think again. That's what this is. Right wing. No, we're right wing. I don't even consider myself right wing. I'm a constitutionalist. I believe in America as it was founded. This hasn't stopped DHS from trying to develop its own security capacity. It just means that whatever DHS does is already being done elsewhere in the government, and that duplication and fragmentation has made the national security apparatus even harder to manage. It goes into how DHS is sending things like armored cars and basically militarizing our police force, and they're doing that because they're afraid of us.
You've seen the stories lately, people, in the last 2 or 3 years of local police departments having Humvees and armored assault vehicles and whatnot. Where do you think they got them? They're federal government surplus.
Well, yeah. I just remember this was always weird. Do you remember when the feds went in and raided Gibson Guitar?
Yeah.
Saying that they were using
illegal wood.
No, what they were doing, they were raiding capitalism is what they were doing.
Yeah. Because it's the same wood that other guitar makers use.
Obama always tells you what he abhors. And here's what he abhors. Christianity, free markets, and did I miss something? And what he loves is socialism/communism and Islam. So I'm sorry if that offends some of you, but it's right there for you to see. Somebody refute what I just said.
People are just, people can't. They're just going to say oh, no, he isn't, or no, he doesn't. Well, and my question to them is, prove it.
Okay. You didn't build that. What's that?
Your business.
You didn't build that. Well, who did? Well, government lets you. Government let me. Really? See, this is how this man thinks.
You know what that's like? That's like saying to Dwight Eisenhower, you didn't win the war in Europe. Because you had support from the other branch, you had all the branches of service supporting you, you had the supply lines supporting you, you had the infrastructure supporting you. Is that ridiculous or what? Yeah, but with a business owner, as with Dwight Eisenhower, you are able to orchestrate everything to your advantage to work to your end. They are the means to your end, but you still built it.
Well, here's what you're going to see. I'm going to switch a little gears here. What happens with totalitarian regimes is they use language. They develop words and phrases that have the inverse meaning of what actually the purpose of that organization is. Like the Department of Homeland Security. It's not the Department of Homeland Security. It's more like the SS.
It's what George Orwell called newspeak.
Yeah, it's newspeak. It's there. It's there as a means to control us. Has nothing to do with terrorists or what have you. Same with the term net neutrality, which you're going to just love. It's going to be so sweet. You're going to love that. Net neutrality makes it sound like, oh, we're going to make the internet, neutral. And no, it's not. It's government control. Read it. Read the legislation. It has nothing to do with neutrality. And that's what, I hate to use the term because it's been bastardized over the years, but that's what communists, that's what they do. When I was over on the East German border, everything in East Germany and Russia was the people's this and the people's that and the democratic this and the democratic that. Nothing could be further from the truth. People have no rights. They're dirt. The only people have rights is the Communist Party. So, Mark Levin the other day says World War III has begun. He says, with one Middle East country collapsing after another and with no end to the ISIS threat in sight, Mark Levin says he sincerely believes that World War III has begun, which I do too. It's only in its economic stage.
Sweden pulled out of the euro this week too.
Well, they're a big problem. They've been taking a lot of Muslims, Islamists in too. Here's what Levin said about the developing situation in the Middle East. A lot of these other countries that still have their own borders and so forth, these are really very weak countries. It doesn't take much to overthrow them. Jordan is a very weak country. Yes, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, these are weak countries. Saudi Arabia, believe it or not, which is most of the Arabian Peninsula or the biggest chunk of it, they can defend themselves to a point, but not with an onslaught. They have a very, very long border. So look what's going on, Levin said. Turkey is run by an Islamo-Nazi. Turkey, a NATO country with an important geographical significance, should not be part of NATO any longer because of its lack of support for fellow NATO countries and its alleged involvement in the Islamo-Nazi cockroaches. So I believe World War III has begun, and I believe we're going to be attacked. You just heard it. It's all over TV and radio that there was an imminent threat against the United States. Do you think that's going to be the only imminent threat against the United States? Do you think we took out a building or a compound and that's it? There's no more imminent threats to the United States. This is why it's immoral, it's unconscionable not to secure that southern border, said Levin, and they won't, but they certainly should. He's continued by saying this. This is why calling everybody under the age of 36 a dreamer, so you think you're talking about some infant and then conferring a legal status on them is suicide. Doesn't matter if the vast majority of people here illegally, mean us no harm or love the country. It's not the vast majority that's a problem from a national security perspective. It's a problem from an economic and welfare state's perspective. But it's not the problem when we're talking about terrorists secreting into this country to do enormous damage. But here it is, World War III is broken out, and Levin reminds us, just remember World War I, World War II. We weren't initially involved in those wars in any significant way, but we were pulled in, and World War III has now broken open. We're seeing the economic part of it begin right now, because that's how World War II began. Mm-hmm. I mean, we forced Japan's hand; they attacked us, and Germany was forced, to embrace a guy like Hitler because of the Versailles Treaty that ended World War I, basically left them destitute.
There's many that say that World War II is just part two of World War I.
It was. What did they call that? The long weekend?
Yeah.
They called it the time between World War I and World War II was just called the long weekend because they never took care of business. They never, nothing.
And that's a lot of it's our fault. We raped them in the Treaty of Versailles. The Western powers or the Allies or whatever you want to call it, we raped them in that treaty.
It guaranteed World War II, and Churchill talked about it in his books, The Gathering Storm.
Yep.
I forgot the other two. There was three of them he wrote.
Which is just the opposite of what we did after World War II, because we realized our mistake. We went back and rebuilt.
Marshall Plan.
The Marshall Plan, exactly. We should have done that to start with.
But we learned. So what we're going to see, I believe we're in the fourth turning. We talked about that last week, that we're going to have financial collapse and war. Sorry.
And I made the comment that the reason why this happens every 70 to 80 years is because that's enough time between major catastrophes that people forget the one that preceded them.
Yeah.
So they can't see the signs because they forget it. They didn't live through it. There's very few people left alive that did.
Yep.
You go back to the beginning of World War II, people are in their 80s right now. And when 80s and 90s, some of them were just little kids when it happened. Heck, our parents were just barely old enough to remember what happened back then. They couldn't make sense of it because they were kids.
Yeah, VE Day, that Mom says she remembers people coming out with pots and spoons and banging.
Yeah, she was 5 years old at the time.
Banging pots and stuff.
Well, folks, that ends another show. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll have it up on YouTube probably tomorrow sometime. And go check out the Neglected News Report YouTube channel, and check out the website, savingtherepublic.net, not .com.
And always keep your eyes open.
Yeah, we have. I'm in the process of the website's kind of changed. It's got a makeover. I'm adding some new things on it. Working on starting a forum and a chat room. Anyway, we'll see you next week, though, folks. Bye-bye.
Have a good week.